You're so much better than all these excessive users over there, right? In this video, I'll show you that you're actually more similar than you think on a neurochemical level. Adenosine is the sleeping neurotransmitter, and the moment you wake up, it starts building up, it starts piling up. Imagine that your brain is like a hotel and adenosine are like these small sleeping soldiers. And the more of those you get into your hotel, the more sleepy you feel, and eventually you just crash and you fall asleep. What coffee does is it inserts a doorman, a security man in front of the hotel, and it says, you know what guys, I know you want to come in and sleep, but it's not going to be right now. Try again tomorrow. Or try again later, right? And eventually, as the caffeine sort of phases out, what happens then is that adenosine gets back into the hotel room, and now suddenly you feel way more tired than you've ever been because your brain was overproducing the adenosine while you were consuming caffeine, right? It didn't understand why are we sending all these sleeping soldiers into the hotel, but for some reason it's not working. This person is still only sleeping 6 hours. They don't have deep sleep. They don't have any REM. You know, let's send some more. And eventually this queue of sleeping soldiers becomes so long that when you do quit and you remove that security guy from the hotel, now suddenly they come flooding in. And now suddenly you just feel super lethargic and tired for, a couple of weeks after you quit. Let's keep that in mind. And now let's look at the receptor occupancy for adenosine in your brain compared to the amount of coffee you consume. So, if we have 1 cup of coffee, which is around 130 milligrams of caffeine, our adenosine receptor occupancy goes up to almost 60%. So now you might be thinking, if I get 60% occupancy in the brain from 1 cup of coffee, then surely if I drink 2 cups or more, I will get 100, right? Wrong. If you drink another cup of coffee, putting you up to 260 milligrams of caffeine, as you can see, you're only increasing your receptor occupancy by a couple of percentages. So what that means is that that first cup of coffee, that innocent, moderate cup of coffee that you consume every morning, and you've been consuming this for 20 years now, and you're just so disciplined and awesome for that. But that 1 cup of coffee is the iceberg of, you could say, your addiction. And the second cup after that is maybe the tip of the iceberg. And the third and the fourth and the fifth cup are really just snowflakes on top of the iceberg. They're not that significant. It's really that first cup of coffee that counts. So let's take, for example, Schmeichel, who drinks 4 cups of coffee every day. He decides one day, after watching one of my videos, to go down to 2 cups, right? He goes down to 2 cups. Everyone is applauding him at the office. Everyone is clapping him on the back saying, wow, Schmeichel, I didn't believe you could do that, but you really can, and you're just as productive as you've always been. How awesome is that? And Schmeichel says, thank you, I know, I'm disciplined, I can do anything I set my mind to, but deep inside, Schmeichel knows that it wasn't that hard at all. Going from 4 cups to 2 cups was barely noticeable. So next week, Schmeichel feels confident to go from 2 cups to 1 cup, and now everyone is applauding him once again. Wow, Schmeichel, you're only drinking 1 cup a day, and you're just so productive, and you're just so cheery and so happy at the office. How awesome is that? You're so awesome. And once again, Schmeichel comes home, he lies there at night, feeling a bit proud of himself, but at the same time, he has this voice in his head saying, Schmeichel, you know it wasn't that hard. Don't overplay it. So the 3rd week comes. Schmeichel is finally ready to jump or to quit. So he goes to Schmiranda, his best friend in the office, and he says, Schmiranda, I want to let go of coffee entirely. I want to jump. I want to go to 0. Schmiranda says, you know what? You've been halving all the time. You went from 4 cups to 2 cups to 1 cup. How about you try going to half a cup for the next week just to get a smooth transition? So Schmeichel thinks about that and he thinks that sounds pretty reasonable. He cuts his last cup in half, meaning he goes from here, let's say 60%, or almost the total capacity of the adenosine receptor occupancy that the brain can technically allow for. Now he goes to half, meaning he goes to here, 50 milligrams, And now he's down to 40% brain occupancy, meaning that he feels that a third of his brain is on fire suddenly. Before it was just a couple of light bulbs here and there. Now it's a third of the brain acting up. A third of those guests, the sleeping guests, that miles-long queue of sleepy soldiers is now flooding into the hotel room. His brain is basically acting up now. He doesn't know what's going on, and this is where the withdrawals really begin. Let's just say that Schmeichel, he manages it, right? He stabilized somewhat on 65 mgs of caffeine for a couple of weeks. Because he's learned from his mistake, he now decides to halve that as well, meaning he's going to go to a quarter of a cup, right? But now it's even worse, because now Schmeichel goes from a 40-something% of the receptor occupancy to a measly 20-something. So whereas before you had like a third of the brain acting up, now you have half of the brain acting up, saying, what's going on? Why is all this adenosine coming in? Where's the compounds, the caffeine that normally is blocking the entrance so that all this adenosine doesn't overflow our hotel? Now Schmeichel experiences even worse withdrawal symptoms, even more lethargy, even more disrupted sleep cycles. And at the same time, he's confused. He feels alone. He doesn't know what's going on. His boss just keeps calling him, Schmeichel, why are you so slow? Why are you not delivering on time? And Schmeichel says, I don't know. I'm sleeping at weird hours and I'm taking naps throughout the day and I just feel like nothing is going on in my brain and I don't know what's going on. It was so easy to go from 4 cups to 1 cup and now, and even from 1 cup to half a cup, but now suddenly I just can't quit that very last bit. I don't know what's going on. So keep in mind the hyperbolic curve, both when you look at so-called excessive use going up the curve, but also going down. When you decide to taper off, to wean off, make sure if you do design a timeline for yourself that you allocate the most time of that tapering to the very last bit, to overcoming the last cup of coffee. Yeah, not the first 4 or 5, but the last one. Here we have like the brain scans of people who have consumed 130 milligrams of caffeine and 260, meaning 1 and 2 cups respectively. 2 of these brains have consumed 1 cup, the other 2 have consumed 2 cups. Can you guess which is which? As you can see, the brains look very similar. It's very hard to see the difference. And the answer is that C2 and D2, meaning these 2 on the right, they're the ones who only had consumed 1 cup of coffee. And the other 2, A2 and B2, they have consumed 2 cups. As you can see, very similar. You can barely tell the difference, meaning that the brain barely understands the difference between you drinking 1 cup of coffee or 5 or even 10 cups of coffee. To your brain, that is almost the same thing. Keep that in mind, and also keep in mind that when you do decide to taper, take it easy towards the end, okay? Be kind to yourself. Take time with that last cup of coffee or that last whatever it is that you're tapering off, and design your timeline accordingly. Understand that it's about the receptor occupancy of the adenosine. It's not about the socially constructed idea of what is a large amount of a substance and what is a tiny amount of a substance. That doesn't even matter. It's all about how your brain reacts to these drugs. And with all that being said, thanks for watching, and until next time.